Welcome to this bonus module on accountability requires facilitating learning. I'm Elaina Noell, and I'm so happy to bring this to you to support your journey in becoming an inspiring accountability leader. I'm going to cover why it's so important to facilitate learning, how crucial it is to having successful accountability, and how to do it. Let's jump in. So here we are. Inspiring accountability requires facilitating learning. Accountability is one of the toughest challenges for leaders because we did not learn effective accountability in the wild. We actually learn more traditional accountability, being punitive, reactive, problem-focused, triggering defensiveness and shutdown, and something that feels more confrontational, usually both to the leader and to the employee. Traditional accountability can feel more like a weight, and it can sink an employee even further into burnout, which is something so many of us are struggling with right now, ourselves and with our teams. So there's never been a better time to learn inspiring accountability, which is focused on being supportive, responding thoughtfully and clearly, and helping your employees be more responsive than reactive. It's more solution focused. It inspires engagement and sustainable results, and it feels more conversational, both to the leader and the employee. This is where we center around the fact that inspiring accountability requires facilitating learning. We want accountability to be supportive, making work more manageable and offering more recharging wins to buoy from burnout. The challenge is that different results require different behavior. Anytime you're bringing a new expectation or you have something that's frustrating you about an employee, it's so important to remember that this is going to require a change in their default thinking and/or actions. You're asking them to change. So we want to keep in mind change management strategies because we're not just asking someone to do something, right? If it was easy, they would have already done it. We're asking them to change something. And that requires some attention to how the brain works. The most important concept here is that we have to learn what to do differently before the moment we need to do it differently. Let's look at an example. Let's say you win a trip to an amazing but kind of remote hut like this. It's totally beautiful. You get in kind of right before dinner. You're super jet lagged, so you get in, you fall asleep, and then you wake up. And what do? Because now it's dark. You start looking for the light switches. So if you're anything like me, you start feeling the walls, feeling pretty awkward about it, and you're just not finding any. And then it turns out, you contact someone and they say, oh, actually, the hut does not have electricity. So when is the best time to figure out a viable light source? When it's still light or once it's dark? Once it's dark and you're in a new place, you're just fumbling around. You're wasting time. You're maybe banging up your shins. But if you could have learned this beforehand when it was still light out, maybe even before your trip, you could have come more prepared. So getting the desired result, which is functioning in a place that doesn't have electricity, was much more effective if you could have known that information and planned for it when it was still light. This is very similar to the concept that we want employees to just figure it out. Because a lot of times they're figuring it out in the dark. They're figuring it out when they're not in the most resourceful place. The most resourceful place to problem solve is before the moment that you're having the problem. And similarly, the most important time to plan for the new behavior you need is before the moment you need to use that new behavior. There are two types of learning required to inspire accountability. The first is learning a new behavior, learning to do the new behavior to get a different result. The second is learn if the new behavior worked. Get feedback on if that new behavior was enough to get the desired result. Because if it's not, then you need to adjust what behavior is needed to get it. So learn the new behavior and learn if the new behavior worked. Before I share the specifics of how to do that, let's look at how learning then is defined in inspiring accountability. It's defined as engaging the brain to strategize a plan of how to do something differently to get a different result, trying the new behavior, and using feedback to assess the effectiveness. This is covering those two elements of learning that we need to do to inspire better accountability and get better results. So what is learning from the inspiring accountability perspective? First, we have learning that new behavior. This is where there's the time for the learning plan. You're strategizing what behavior needs to be learned in order to get the result. And it's important to address here that this is not for everything, right? This is not about to-do lists. This is about something that you've been trying to get this person to do or trying to get them feedback, and it's still not working. They're still not meeting the expectation. This is starting the learning and development process. So your learning plan, you're strategizing what behavior is needed. And the clear results model will walk you through as a leader how to do this, primarily with these 3 questions: understanding what's in the way, exploring what's possible, and determining a next action step. And then it's time to look for that learning evidence. Did the new behavior happen in the planned context? So someone might be really good at speaking, but all of a sudden they get in front of a certain group of people and they're not so great at it, right? So we really care about the behavior in the context. That's how we know. In fact, it's really the only way we know that learning has truly happened. If not, then we got to go back to our learning plan. Number 2, the other learning is the behavior effectiveness learning. So let's say the behavior did happen. They did try the behavior. Woo, this is a great win. Some learning here has happened. Well, how effective was that behavior in solving the result, right? Because really it's all trying. It's all theorizing what could work. And it's about our pathway there. So we're evaluating the natural or provided feedback, right? Sometimes feedback is natural. I want to have a better conversation with someone. I try something new. There's natural feedback by looking at their face or reading their body language. Did I do better? Did I not? Sometimes, a lot of times for leaders, it's provided feedback. You're going to be the one giving them feedback on if they met the expectations or not. So did the new behavior get the result, or do you need to re-strategize? And the results model steps here that we're using would be revisiting. So up next, you have a few modules on learning and mastering the clear results model. Here it is, just to share with you a little bit about what we're doing. You're really clarifying that desired result. You're setting the expectation, and then you go into facilitating learning what's in the way, exploring what's possible, and asking for that next action step. Then the employee executes the effort, right? How did they do? Did they actually learn what they needed in order to do that new behavior in the needed context? And then you revisit that. So you'll see here as you get more into it, that this is the model that is going to help you facilitate learning and make it something conversational and not confrontational.